Ah, Call of Duty Zombies. A small little game mode in Call of Duty World at War that turned into the series staple it is today. Back in the day, many looked forward to the next Treyarch Call of Duty game solely to get their hands on the next Zombies experience. But over the years, the game mode has gone from having one of the most loyal and active fan bases in any video game to almost a depressed state of abandonment. Content creators whose whole channels were dedicated to Call of Duty Zombies have seemingly moved on to other ventures. Players are also losing interest in the game mode as a whole, similarly causing them to jump ship to other games. But why is that? Well, I personally believe that many of the general fanbase was just fed up with how drastically Zombies was changing, both in its gameplay and most importantly its storyline. The story, in my opinion, took a turn for the worst at the start of the Giant in Black Ops 3. The story at that point was basically mapped out, with little to no room for theorizing what would happen next. The plans for all 4 characters throughout the DLC season were pretty much given away at that point. Instead of leaving the end for each map ambiguous, we pretty much were given a roadmap as to what to expect on each map, with the exception of revelations. The introduction of Dr. Monty was very ominous. Just who is this strange old man that can talk to us telepathically? Well, it turns out he's God. They basically use Monty as a scapegoat for everything. How do we get drops? Oh, because Dr. Monty. Who had the idea for the perk jingles? Dr. Monty. Why is the summoning Dr. Monty? Dr. Monty, Dr. Monty, Is there something Dr. Monty didn't do? If there was something unimportant to explain, all they had to do was slap it with a good old Dr. Monty did it sticker on it. As you can see, I'm not the biggest fan of Dr. Monty. Don't get me wrong, Malcolm McDowell absolutely nailed his role as Dr. Monty, and honestly I can't imagine anyone else playing him, but he was so poorly implemented into the story, completely ruining the character for me altogether.
Hello, I'm a British person.
The original zombie storyline had a lot of charm to it, and for good reason. Part of it was the community's involvement. In the early days we were given 4 unknown soldiers fighting off hordes of the undead with little to no explanation as to why. It was pretty much up to the fans to put together bits and pieces to come up with their own story. For example, the very vein of the Samantha Maxis' existence is due to a very popular theory at the time, where the players often hear the zombies utter the name Sam as they attack. Sam! This led early zombies theorists to come up with the conclusion that a person by the name of Sam had something to do with the zombies, and sure enough, by the map Duriz, the fan theory became a reality. It was there that Samantha was first introduced and finally hailed as the official antagonist for the zombies storyline. I feel like this type of storytelling, letting the fans nudge the storytellers where they want to see the story headed, was a great way of having the community be active within the game. Unfortunately, as we head further into the series, this kind of storytelling becomes less apparent, and the storytellers now dictate where the story goes without taking fan feedback or inspiration into consideration. A perfect example of this is the Giant from Buried. For the longest time, the community has given his character the name Leroy. Leroy was later given the official name of Arthur by the writing team for seemingly no reason whatsoever, even after the community had named him. And it wasn't like a couple of people were referring to him as Leroy, it was the entire freaking fan base. Now this type of storytelling, coupled by the storyline seemingly changing from sci-fi to fantasy, really pissed a lot of people off. Especially those who fell in love with the older storyline that played off of real-world events and conspiracy theories. Instead of seeing more secret Nazi weaponry or Cold War Soviet experiments, we see medieval storybook plot devices being featured a lot more prominently. There are dragons and zombies now? A race of mythical squid-like beings fighting over power of the universe?
What the hell's all this shit?
And yes, I understand that some of the original plot points of the original zombie storyline were based on fantasy, like Argotha or the Zombie Souls for example, but it kept the usage of fantasy to a minimum, as well as keeping it within the realm of plausibility. You know, it's plausible that something like this happened within the world of Call of Duty Zombies, but it wasn't noticeable to the general public, because after all, we're fighting zombies in top secret facilities or rundown abandoned theaters, or even in the middle of a Siberian tundra. The new storyline has the exact opposite. Zombies are not suddenly involved in war zones, giant mechs are suddenly and now a thing that the Germans and Russians used in World War II. Nothing about this makes sense. Wasn't the world of CoD Zombies supposed to be a parallel to the real world? If so, then none of these things add up. Okay, you can probably make the argument that Black Ops 2 also had the same problem, that the whole world is now involved with the zombie outbreak. And while yes, you'd be correct, you have to realize that Black Ops 2 was the aftermath of the culmination of Richthofen's grand scheme. So really, Black Ops 2 Zombies doesn't really play off any historical events. I also wasn't the biggest fan of the multiverse. It sort of felt like it was tacked in as a way to explain why there's so many inconsistencies within the past zombies maps. On top of that, it only caused more confusion and plot holes along the way. We went from having one Richtofen to seemingly endless versions of Richtofen, Evil Richtofen, Young Richtofen, Great War Richtofen, Kid Richtofen. I mean, where does it end? The multiverse probably wasn't the best idea, and they should have just stuck with time travel instead. Even time travel has its own issues within the OG storyline, but at least it was definitely easier to follow and definitely easier to explain than the current storyline. It seemed like their intention with the storyline pre-Moon was to make the Illuminati have a much bigger role, perhaps even being the true culprits behind the zombie outbreaks, with the help of extraterrestrial beings. Yeah, I know this sounds crazy, but hear me out. All throughout World at War and Black Ops 1, we've seen several instances of these weird symbols on the wall. These symbols are said to be part of the Illuminati's alphabet. These symbols show up in Verrucht, Der Riese, and 5. On top of that, the Eye of Providence, aka the All-Seeing Eye, is also seen in Kino on the bookshelf behind the barricade. This map is where Richtofen famously makes his first Illuminati reference. The quote goes as follows:
"The Illuminati will never get their hands on me again."
The Eye of Providence also makes appearances through several monitors on 5 and Ascension. So as you can see, the Illuminati was foreshadowed in a heavy way throughout the World at War and Black Ops 1 seasons. This leads me to believe that the MPD pyramid was most likely originally made to be placed by the Illuminati on the moon. But how did they manage to get to the moon before anyone? This is where the aliens come from. It's possible that the Illuminati made contact with these extraterrestrial beings. Maybe they came up with some sort of alliance that helps them establish their new world order, by allowing them to take control of anyone in a zombified state. With the help of this alien technology, the Illuminati was able to plant this device shaped after their signature pyramid on the moon. I believe we were once meant to go up against the Illuminati and these otherworldly beings at one point, but that's just my theory, I could be completely wrong. But it just makes so much sense that I kinda wish Treyarch took this approach instead of destroying the Earth. Even though it was pretty badass, not gonna lie. But it did lead to this rabbit hole that we are in now, but I mean, it still looks cool, I guess. And yeah, I get it, some stories do need to come to a conclusion, but this conclusion kind of felt rushed. As if they wanted to throw the Ether storyline out the door as soon as possible in order to focus on a more chaotic story, if you catch my drift. Oh yo, what's up, this is Future Scissor. At the time of recording the previous dialogue, the Cold War Zombies trailer didn't drop yet. But now that I got to see it, it looks like they're actually ditching the chaos story, so it looks like they're going full on Dark Ether this time around. I guess they didn't throw away the Ether storyline, which I'm kind of happy for, but I didn't want to see it go away. Yeah, I was wrong on this point, so yeah, back to the video. So, closing statements. I disliked where the zombies storyline ended up. They should have looked into the fans' interest and taken a page or two out of our own ideas and theories. And they also shouldn't have started all of this medieval fantasy bullcrap in the first place. It's not really my cup of tea. I honestly just would have preferred them to stick within the realm of sci-fi. And from the description of Cold War Zombies, it seems like my prayers have been answered. It looks like Zombies will return to its war experiment roots that started with World at War. How long this will last though, only time will tell.